As promised earlier, we're now having our next panel. We now have our speakers together, and the subject of the next talk will be how to become a unicorn in the German market. The panel is hosted by GP Bullhound, and actually we also have one German unicorn and one German unicorn to be on stage, which is going to be exciting to hear what their path of success was. And I would like now to introduce you to the host of this session, Julian Riedlbauer. Please join me on stage. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Now I'm welcoming two great entrepreneurs and great investors on stage. Please join me. Here are the really successful entrepreneurs, investors, all the way from London and Berlin. Let's start with a quick introductory round and a summarization of what you do, why you started your company. Markus, do you want to start?
Thank you. So I'm Markus, CEO at a company called Babbel. We're the app that gets people to speak foreign languages. It's a 500 people company in Berlin and New York with we crossed 1 million paying subscribers last year. It's a profitable company, fast growing in the consumer space. So what we do is sell language learning subscriptions into the consumer market. And we're self-sustaining since quite a time as a company.
Congratulations to building up such a big business. 500 people, 1 million paying subscribers. Great achievement.
Thank you.
So congrats. I would love to be in your position. Hakan.
Right. Thank you. So my name is Hakan, co-founder, co-CEO of AutoOne Group. AutoOne Group is the biggest car trading platform in Europe. We have operations on the ground in 10 countries where we source cars and have our own retail organization. We sell in 28 countries, Europe-wide. We were founded in 2012 and employ 2,800 people across the countries.
Big company. Can you talk about the valuation of your business?
It's good.
That's good. So I can tell you it's a real unicorn. So we have a real unicorn. It's probably the fastest growing unicorn. And you became a unicorn after how many years?
That was, let me think about it, end of 14, 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah,
so unicorn within 2 years. So that's like a Silicon Valley success story here in Berlin. Matthias, you're backing companies like that and others.
We would love to back companies like that.
If the microphone is not working, can you hand over your one?
Hello? This is on? Okay. My name is Matthias Allgaier. I'm a partner at Summit Partners. We are a late-stage investment firm founded 33 years ago in the US, currently investing active funds of about 7 billion, investing primarily in fast-growing, later-stage technology, healthcare, and tech-enabled service companies. We have an active portfolio of over 100 companies, invested since foundation about 450 companies, had about 150 IPOs, and currently investing our second-generation European fund. We tend to deploy capital of at least 20 million up to 200 million in equity into companies. Typically, these companies are close to profitability or are already profitable and looking for additional capital as they continue to grow. And most of what we do, most of the companies we invest in have the aspiration at least, and a lot of them do make it to the US market, so we help them expand there.
Quick question before you hand over. How many investments do you want to do this year still?
We have made 2 investments in Berlin over the past 12 months or 18 months. just announced another investment, or about to announce another investment in Hamburg in the healthcare services market. And this year we are going to hopefully close on one more deal on the continent, or in mainland Europe, in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
So you're
at least one more.
You're truly in a deal closing mode. So if someone needs money, he's the guy to talk to.
Yep.
Nenad.
Okay.
I guess you're also the guy with the money.
Not as much money as Matthias, but we do our best. So I work at a firm called DN Capital. We're an early stage venture capital firm. We do mostly seed, late seed, Series A, excuse me, some Series B, some growth. We have offices and operations in London, Berlin, Silicon Valley. And we invest mostly in marketplaces, SaaS, fintech, software, consumer applications, and we're starting to invest in digital health. We have about $500 million under management. We just raised our fourth fund this summer at about $200 million. And we've been very fortunate to start investing in Berlin since about 2009, 2010. My first investment here was Mr. Specs. The second one was Vinlin. And then after that, we've been fortunate enough to do Series A in Quandu, Home2Go, Auto1. So our first check was 17 million pre-money valuation. You can look at the press and see what the current valuation of Auto1 is. So that's been a fantastic investment. Thank you, Hakan. And we're quite excited about the Berlin ecosystem. In fact, 60% of our last fund was invested in Germany. So we're big buyers on the German ecosystem. So if you're raising seed, Series A, Series B, we have $200 million of fresh capital. Happy to talk to anybody after this.
So let's stay with the guys with the money. What do you like more, investing in Berlin or in London? You're both from London, but you're here, you're investing here. What do you like better, and why are you still in London?
Well, I'm not English, I'm American, so I'm neutral as to the geography. But I think that some of the work that I think Oliver Samwar and Lukáš, who are really the pioneers of Berlin here, have done, and created some great entrepreneurs, like Hakan worked for Aldi. A lot of if you look at the companies that have been really interesting in Europe for the last 5 years, a lot of them have come out of the Rocket and Team Europe ecosystem. Zalando, Delivery Hero, Auto1, Quandu, City Deal, etc. So we think this is a very interesting ecosystem.
Yeah, so I would echo that. We invest across all of Europe, and we have put a lot of capital to work over the past few years in Germany. One of our most successful deals has been a German company which we recently sold to the Deutsche Börse, and that was founded here, and that was almost a unicorn. We think that Berlin is a very exciting place to be. It changed. I mean, I've been doing this now for over 20 years, and Berlin has changed dramatically in the past few years. I would say it still has a way to go. We need more entrepreneurs, we need more support around the entrepreneurs, but it's certainly a very exciting place, and I see it at the very least at par with London right now.
I can fully agree. Berlin is growing. It's a super interesting place to be at. That's why we opened the GP Bullhound office in Berlin 5 years ago, and we are growing and we are getting money in. So I advised the company Signavio that Matthias invested in $35 million 18 months ago, and the company doubled since then in terms of number of people, and the revenues doubled even faster, grew even faster. So I think Berlin can build great companies. Now, two great examples are here. Hakan, why is your company so successful? And do you have anyone copying you?
Oh,
what makes you so successful? To be a unicorn after 2 years, that's amazing.
A short question that requires a long answer. But at the end of the day, I don't think you don't start. You cannot plan if you want, so this is when I want to have this valuation, and and I want to be a unicorn. I think you start like everyone else here started with a team and an empty room and an idea, and then you take it from there, and you get your business is dragging you. You're not deciding that you get up in the morning and say this is now the next phase. And I think if that happens, then perhaps it's not really the next phase. It's more like you start something and all of a sudden exponentially it's growing and dragging you in, and you just try to make it work, and the day hasn't enough hours, and that's when you know that you're doing the right thing. And then you look back. That's why I also didn't really know. How long did it take? I don't know. We started and it never ended, and we're still here. And there's still way more to go. And I think that's always a good sign. But at the end of the day, you need to be really, really passionate about what you're doing there. And I mean, we didn't even afford, if you want, so developers in the beginning. So we had our daily business during the day, and at night, Christian and I had to code the platform, which kept for, I think, about a year until we really said, okay, perhaps we really need professionals doing this. And and all of a sudden you look back, and then you're, you have a certain success, you're happy about it, but more and more people have contributed to it. So actually you're, if you want, so the Kickstarter of an organization. And when you ask me now who's running, if you want, so the ecosystem or the organization, then I can name 50 names by heart who are very important that the whole thing works. So.
Hakan, it sounds a bit too easy. It sounds a bit too easy to grow and build up this unicorn. Nenad, what's the secret sauce of these guys? I know Hakan doesn't want to tell us the secrets, but you can tell.
I think Hakan's a little bit modest. I think you have an amazing business model, a big market, and a fantastic team. And Hakan is probably one of the best fundraisers in Europe. So this business has has consumed a lot of capital. It's not easy to raise that kind of money. And he's been able to bring in some of the best investors in Europe, in the world, actually, TST included. So I think, a lot of chapeau to the team at, Auto One.
Right. So, Markus, what makes you so successful?
I mean, there's long answers. The short answer is always, if it's about success, it's luck. I mean, you can screw up a lot. If you do one or two things right, you usually end up in a good place. The problem is you never know what these one or two things are that you have to get right. So is it easy? No, it's not. It's not easy to not screw up everything that you touch. Absolutely not. And you can do everything right, and you can work hard as hell, be in the most promising market, and have a fantastic business model and company. And if the luck doesn't come in, it's not worth anything. I've seen great people with great teams going bust if they're just not at the right time or the right place, and you don't know. You just know ex post. So it's always misleading if you look back, and if you try to emulate what happened before. I totally agree to Hakan. It's like oil drilling. You find something, and then you have to deal with it. And dealing with that takes all your energy and all your time. And it's not about you don't manufacture success. You search it, and when you hit it, you need to cope with it. I think that's the secret.
It sounds a bit that you drilled for oil but found a gold mine. So I think you did even better than you expected.
I don't know which is better, oil or gold this time, but we were certainly very lucky in what we found.
Good. So, question to the audience. Please raise your hand if you are running a company or if you want to start a business. Raise your hand. So quite a lot of founders or founders-to-be. So I'm sure you are at the right space, at the right spot, at the right time, and at the right city. Because it has never been a better time to start your company. You have so many money floating into the system that I think it's the right time to start. And better start sooner than later, because I think now is the time to run your company, grow it. The money is here, the ideas are here, and the overall environment is good. Question to the entrepreneurs. If you're growing up the business so fast, how many employees do you add per month? How many people do you hire? Hakan, Markus?
I mean, it depends on the stage. If for us, as we also have a physical retail business, if we're just in rollout of new branches or not. But I mean, we pretty much hire 50 people every month. So I would say.
Okay, good. Markus?
We're currently not hiring a lot of people, so I just had our welcome day today. That was 12 people that we added in a month. So that's not huge for us in terms of number of people. But years are different. There are phases where you need to grow the team in terms of size, and then there are phases where you need to gain efficiency and get everybody to work. And there's no general rule of how fast a company can grow. There are companies who grow in a totally amazing pace, and there are others who try to do the same and can't even digest half of that. It's all about how many can you onboard, how many people can you make productive over a short period of time. It's so many factors. It depends on how big your team is, how good your onboarding is.
I mean, you already have 500 people, so it's quite sizable. So for the ones that don't run a company and don't want to start a company, there are still good employers here on stage. So you can apply and find a good job in the hottest startups here in Berlin. Or grown-ups, it's not startup anymore, it's grown-ups and unicorns. Be prepared for questions, so think about questions. We have a microphone up front. We will ask you to ask questions, but I have another question for the team here. If it's not your company, and if it's not the companies you invested in, what do you think are hot companies in Germany one should look out, maybe you missed investing in? Nenad, what do you miss?
The obvious one is Delivery Hero, because Lukasz offered me Delivery Hero at 12 million pre, and now it's worth 5 billion. So it's a very sad story, but it comes with the business.
So even the best investors sometimes miss a great opportunity.
If you would have invested in every business Lukasz created, you probably would have made 10, 20x. I don't think it's the same for Rocket, but definitely Lukasz.
So I guess you're a big fan of Lukasz Gadowski. How about you, Markus, Matthias?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of them, right? You always, hindsight is 20/20. So one business that I really like is Hybris, which was a Swiss business, which we looked at and didn't get in at the time, and then it was sold to SAP for well north of $1 billion. That was a nice business. TeamViewer, backed by Premier, is a nice business. There are a number of them. The list is long, but you focus on the ones you get and try to make them work.
Do you prefer investing in Berlin or in London, and why?
I prefer to invest and find the best companies, no matter where they are. But the likelihood of them being in Berlin or London is pretty high compared to other.
Nenad, how about you?
Same answer. Wherever the good company is. I mean, Purple Bricks was good too.
I just want to remind you and everyone that we're in Berlin now. So
I already
please
said we
be more
invested
enthusiastic
60% of our
about
last
Berlin.
fund in Berlin. I think that's a good statement, no?
So, questions to the audience, or the audience, do you have questions? There's the microphone. Please go up to the microphone and say your name and the question, and to whom.
Hello? Hi. Hi guys, my name's Nick. I'm from New York. It's awesome to be here in Berlin. I have a question for any of you really who find this an interesting question, especially nowadays. So as gentlemen of the tech and venture capital world, what do you guys think of Uber and the difficulties they've been facing as a company recently, especially here in the European market? I know recently it came out that it looks like they're going to start pulling operations out of Spain and the Spanish market, for example. So, as gentlemen of the tech world, what do you think about Uber, and are these problems pretty big? Thank you.
Who wants to take that question, Matthias?
So we invest in Uber. So I'm gonna not comment on that question, other than to say that I've obviously privy to some of the numbers. It's an amazing business, and I've not seen anything like it. I have not seen anything like it. So I think they will inevitably. There are bumps in the road. for any business like this. It's an industry, it's a complete, utter game changer. And long term, I would not want to bet against Uber.
Yeah, Uber is a life changer, right? I mean, if you're living especially in the US where you have to drive everywhere, California, I mean, the amount of people that don't have to drive drinking anymore, saving lives, saving people on the road, cars, space. So I think from an environmental perspective, the company's great. Also from a convenience perspective, also from a money saving perspective. People don't have to buy a car anymore if you live in a lot of parts of California. So, but I think, Travis is obviously taking the rap, and it's really tough. He's a great guy. I've met him several times. I like him. I mean, obviously, some things happened. His company grew so quick. A lot of things that happened, he didn't even know they were happening. And that, as a CEO, you have to know what's going on in your company. So that's tough. But I think that the new CEO will probably turn it around. I think it's a great company. I think it's one of the best companies that's ever come out of technology. It'll be worth a lot of money. So you're going to make a good return.
I wouldn't call it a turnaround. You say they're going to turn it around. It's a really phenomenal business. So I think, as I said earlier, inevitably you have the growth rates like this. You have global ambitions. You will hit some bumps. And that's all I think it is.
Matthias knows the numbers and he's still smiling, so that's a positive outlook.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Thank you.
Any more questions now? Yes.
Hi, I'm Francisco from Frankfurt, and I have a question for...
Sorry, wrong city. Berlin.
Okay, I'll just go home now. I have a question for the founders. What was your biggest mistake when starting your company or in the journey, and what did you take away from it?
Seems to be a tough one.
Yeah, there are so many. It's very hard to say which was the biggest one.
Just pick one.
So one big mistake we made in the beginning is to totally underestimate how important monetization is. So we started out with a free product and thought, yeah, monetization will come later. We'll try ads and sell stuff on top. That almost broke our necks. It almost ruined our company. It was very, very close to bankruptcy until we completely turned around into a sustainable business model. That we didn't see that coming in the beginning.
Hakan, not so 2 years to unicorn, not many times for mistakes.
I think when it comes to physical piece of your business, and it's not all digital, and that could be your warehouse provider, it could be your DHL or anybody else who does real world service for you, we underestimated our growth. I mean, we were growing 30-40% a month. And then we came to a point where we had too many cars physically. And this logistics operator that I pitched in the beginning and said, you will grow with us, we're great, we're doing, 200 cars a month now, but next month will be 300, and then it will be a lot more. Today it's over 35,000 a month. We underestimated that perhaps not everybody is willing to actually also grow at that size. And from a certain point, they said, I don't want to work with you anymore. It's just too stressful. My wife doesn't like me anymore. And I want to get rid of this account, although it's my best account. And we had to fix it. And I think we were 2 days before overflow of our retail organizations that I found one of our today also biggest logistics partners. And so my co-founder and the team, everybody says we need to get rid of this, we need a solution, we need to talk to 50 companies. And I said, no, there's these guys close to Munich, I will fly there and they will help us. So I go there and pitch them and say, we're this big and you have to help us and we need the logistics, and the other partner is, he can't handle it anymore. And they sit there and listen, we have one coffee, we have two coffees, they don't say anything. I drive home with a rental car, and on the German Autobahn, the phone rings and they say, okay, we start collecting tomorrow. And I'm like, woo, okay, now I could go and have 1 day off. Yeah? That was really, if you have anything where you need a third party and you're growing fast, you need to make sure that you have a plan B, and also that these people also want to grow that fast, and they mean it, because the first 20%, the first 30%, everybody likes it, but do it 10 times in a row, and there comes a point where they say, I'm German Mittelstand, I'm not doing this anymore.
More questions? Yes, please walk up to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Jan. I'm from Berlin. I just want to know, like, for the founders, do you guys have like mentors, or did you where did you get like the main skills which are important for entrepreneurship?
I didn't start my work as an entrepreneur. I was a manager before. That did help. So 8 years of actual work experience helped me survive. I always had mentors. I'm also in a part of the entrepreneurs organization that is a kind of a peer learning setup for entrepreneurs. I would totally advise anybody going into such a stressful environment to find people around them to support them. They don't have to be from the same industry. They don't even have to be from any industry. But I think in that learning curve that people are going through as early stage founders, they usually should have somebody to talk to who's not an investor and not related to the company.
Let me jump in here as the investor as well. I think that is, if you pick, can you hear me? So I think that is one of the key ingredients any good investor should bring to you as a portfolio company. I think having not just us on the board who give you capital, but picking the right investor who can help you and introduce you to people who have done it before, who can mentor you, who can be there for you, I think is one of the key factors for why you should raise capital and not just look for money, but look for somebody who can help you beyond the money. So we have, for example, almost every company we invest in, we make sure there's one or two industry people who work alongside us as either the chairman or some non-executive board member or some sort of advisor to be there for you, so you have somebody to talk to. I think that is it's a super good question, I think, and a very important one, especially for younger companies. And I think both Nenad and I would agree that is one of the things that we have to bring and have to provide to companies.
So this, my head of HR will love me for this, but you should join a fast-growing company first. Yeah? And you can go both tracks. I mean, you can start just jumping into cold water, and there are great examples of that, and it's well respected. And there are people who just joined another company for 1-2 years and understanding the DNA of how does a company work that scales this fast. What is the DNA? And I have spent some time at several of those. My occupation at Rocket, and then as an entrepreneur in residence, and then joined Home24. And the interesting thing was to see that some central functions and some way decisions are made were very, very similar, whether you were selling shoes or online dating or furniture or coupons or God knows what. And so we see in our company, of course, people who have joined us and then found their co-founder at work and then come to you and say, I have to quit. And of course, for a second you're sad, and then the next second you remember that you actually did the same to your boss, and it's a good thing. And so if people are not really deep in the mode that the business pulls you in, and you don't really know that you're founding, but somehow it's happening, I would advise to join a company anywhere from Series A to our size, because anywhere in that process you will just learn a lot of things without making those mistakes. As you asked, like, what were the biggest mistakes? The best mistakes are the ones that happen on someone else's P&L and balance sheet, but you're close enough to watch them and learn from it. And the only way to do that is that you have a trust relationship with your company that you work for, and they really let you see a lot of that. And in the best case, And this also happened to me. You keep that relationship when you leave. Perhaps your CEO will be your first angel investor, which is, I guess, always a good sign also for investors when they see the guy who we worked for is putting a little bit of money behind him. And that could be your mentor. Yeah? That could be the guy you call and say, hey, we're doing our seed round. What's important and what is weighted average anti-dilution protection? Never heard of it. Can you explain it to me? And in my opinion, it's a good path to become an entrepreneur, but there are many other ways.
I couldn't agree more. So it's definitely helpful to have some work experience in a real company, and not just go from college right into founding. That has worked for many people as well. A good friend of mine did that and built quite a company with more than 100 people. So it is possible. I think what helps a lot, especially early on, is to speak to others who are in a similar position or a little further, because for me, nothing was more powerful than understanding that other entrepreneurs are struggling as well, that they feel they are not up to it, that they feel the next day somebody will find out that they are the wrong guy, because everybody feels like that. And while that is shared in literature and so on, there's nothing like hearing it from real people you admire and that you think that really rock it, and then you hear from them that they're just cooking with water as well. That's, I think, very, very important. It was vital for me.
Hello, can you hear me? So I think there's like, everything that they've said I can't add to, it's all perfect advice and everything. I guess there's two things. You're either like a domain expert, like you know something about cryptocurrency that nobody else knows, and you're super young and you're just gonna go for it. Then I would just suggest you get some really smart people that have built a business before around you. But you could also be someone out there says, I want to be a founder of a company, but I don't have any idea what I want to do, right? And rather than do something that you probably don't have any conviction for, you could go work for one of the incubators. So you could work for Rocket, True Venturo, a few other ones here in Berlin, and you will get a lot of responsibility very quickly, and you will learn how a company works. And actually, from that, you'll meet people like my colleague just said, and actually be able to probably come up with an interesting idea to start your own business. So I think that it's so hard to build these businesses if you don't really have a lot of conviction in what you're doing. It's going to be really hard to work 18 hours a day, and this is what a lot of these guys have done for the first couple of years. And obviously it goes in spurts, but it can be quite regular throughout the process.
Thank you so much. And just one private question, because I heard like successful people listen to a lot of audiobooks or read a lot of books. So is that true for you guys? Do you like listen to a lot of books and like learn through that or not? And if so, how many per month?
I spent 2 years at Harvard Business School reading a lot of books. I still read books.
I'm actually reading a lot, not mainly business books. There's a service called Blinkist that might help in digesting books quickly and getting started. I still believe in also reading the whole thing, but usually the business book that works for your company has yet to be written. So it's just inspiration here and there.
Thank you so much.
More questions. Harald, the microphone is coming to you, coming there.
Thank you, Julian. I have a twofold question, or two ways. Equity markets are very developed nowadays, especially in the private equity venture capital scene. So my first question is very technical, probably to Hakan. Do you have in your company in the beginning working capital issues, and how did you solve them, in especially maybe like debt financing versus equity financing? That would be my first question. And second, I think this is more interesting, how do you get over from Series A to that next stage, Series B, which affects you especially, except hiring people like Julian? Thanks.
can always run a very strict structured process and bring in by GP Bullhound like investors like Matthias or a lot of others. So Signavio had 9 bids from international investors after our roadshow, but you made it in the end, Matthias.
So you told us.
Hakan, but I think you didn't need any banker, did you? Or in the beginning, you did not need any banker in the beginning. You did all by yourself.
No, and that's the challenge in founding a business, perhaps, or especially in Germany. You will not get any debt, and the retail bankers, the Main Street bankers, they love to hear the story. Nobody will say no to a meeting. Everybody will say it's a great idea, and nobody will give you credit. That's the truth. Because at the end of the day, it's a highly regulated industry, and these people have to follow rules, and they are working with other people's money. So at the end of the day, the first 3 years, you will not have any debt that is a standard debt product on your balance sheet, I'm pretty sure. Because the first thing that bankers ask for is 3 years of audited financials. And then they actually believe there's a business. That's part 1. And part 2 is there is no specialized bank that will come and say, we understand where you're going to. So any bank you go to will send you to their startup advisor, and their startup advisor will advise people who build small businesses, who might want to build a restaurant or a barber shop or God knows what and need 25,000 euros. And it's great, and they want to take that credit and build, if you want, so their personal income and their business. And you go to them and say, actually, I need 10 million to make this work. So how do we get that done? And the answer is you don't. So you have to be creative on if you can build enough trust in what you're lending against, that you will have private investors that will sign up for a bond or something like that, if it's really asset-backed. And then you go and knock on the doors of your shareholders and tell everybody that they have to support the company. And on the other hand, you always have a wave of, you raise a lot more capital than you need the next day, which makes a lot of sense because you shouldn't be fundraising the next day again. So you can use that as working capital to prove the case and then build your wave of excess capital. Obviously very expensive. I mean, our equity is the most expensive capital I've ever used. But that way you will find that equilibrium of performance and liquidity. And then the last thing, if you know that you are in a working capital related business or dependent business, start your homework very, very early. So yes, 3 months later we noticed this will be a big balance sheet. So very, very early we put a lot of effort in transparency. How can a bank in 3 years that I will meet react to my bank statements, my sub-accounts, my accounting. Very early on, after the second full year, we had a full audit by KPMG, although nobody requested it, no investor requested it. But we already knew we will need that in 2015. So the best thing that we can do is when they see a startup and say, you know what, you're 2.5 years old. Do you even have any financial statements? And you say, yeah, of course. Here are my audited financials, and we're doing it the next year again. And I mean, you can't accelerate the phase, and you will still need the 3 years. But if you're prepared, you need 3 years and 1 day, and not 3 years and another year.
Can I comment on this just real quick? Oh, wait. Go ahead. I was going to say, at the super early stage, when you're raising your Series A, can you hear me?
You need the microphone from Nenad, please.
Hello. So if you're raising the first round, if we see a banker, we're not going to be very happy about it because we don't want to see a banker in the first 1 or 2 rounds. We want you to be able to come to events like this and come up after and pitch your business or find out my email somehow or get to us somehow through. Hakan actually came to us through, he actually was in, where were you, Costa Rica? He was in Costa Rica surfing and met a guy who knew someone at DN. That was one way. And then also Oscar Hartman the CEO of Kupi VIP, also made an introduction to us. So we got actually warm introduction. So we obviously looked at the business quite carefully. If you just send an email over info, it's probably not going to get so much attention. But you guys are smart enough. If you're going to be able to run a business, you should be able to get to us through your own efforts, not through a banker for the first 1 or 2 rounds. Later, that's different. That's when you sometimes do and sometimes don't need a banker.
Nenad, I couldn't agree more with you. We don't advise any early stage companies, but grown-up companies in early stages, you need to build up trust between the investor and the company, and a banker in between is not helpful. Markus?
Yes. So first, I agree to what Hakan said. Get your accounts audited from day one. It's absolutely worth the money, and it's pretty cheap in the beginning. You don't, if you're not selling physical goods, you might not need KPMG in the beginning, but auditing makes sense. To talk to investors, what worked for me very well is to meet them early on, just over a cup of coffee, or better even for beers, but totally informal. Outside of I need to raise this round of capital just to get to know people, get intros, and talk to people like these guys early on, get to know them, get their number, so that they know that you're a good guy when you need their money. I think that is very, very important.
More questions from the audience. Please walk up, and there's one question right to the right side. Ladies first.
Thank you. Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I also thought it might make sense to let everyone know there's a woman in the house. My question is basically for the investors. Now, with the entire, the entrepreneurs with the nerve-wracking 5-minute elevator pitch that we see every day back to back, I'm assuming you guys actually have a strike through to analyze and evaluate what kind of candidate are you looking for. So are there any insider tips, the ones that I don't find on LinkedIn or Bloomberg, that you personally, am I audible?
Yeah, we hear you, yes, but
okay.
Speak a bit louder, please.
Sorry, it's just, all right. So are there any insider tips from your end that I would probably not find on LinkedIn and Bloomberg? Something personal that you could share today? Thank you.
Are you talking about like during your actual pitch, like during your elevator pitch?
Yes, sorry, let me clear myself. For example, the ones we had today, in that 5-minute span, you are having strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, right?
Yeah.
Something in your head that's crunching the numbers and evaluating the pitch. So are there any insider feedbacks that you want to give today to the ones going on stage?
Well, I think it's obviously the energy of the presenter, first of all. If someone's just up there like, you got to be animated, you got to move, you got to get up, you got to move your hands. Maybe not too much. But tell people what you do right away. Sometimes you watch a presentation and you're on the 10th slide and like, what does this company do? So immediately talk about what you do, why it's important, how big the market is, why the team you put together is appropriate to take it on. And and someone,
So Nenad, you're around tonight, right? People can pitch to you.
Look on videos for, there's a couple entrepreneurs who are really good pitchers. So Fabrice Grunda, he's on, you can find him on the web very easily. And also maybe Philip Magin, also very good at presenting. And just see what, really good entrepreneurs, Hakan, he's pitched before too. So just watch what really good entrepreneurs do.
Do you think it makes sense to have a collective co-founders pitching together rather than just a solo one? Do you think that brings some sort of impact?
If you got 5 minutes, it's hard to get everyone up there. I would just say the CEO.
All right, thank you.
So more questions.
Hi, Ohad from Berlin. I want to ask the founders actually a question. You were talking about the money, getting the money, and I'm also in this phase, and I have a problem getting the first investment, like the pre-seed. And I didn't really hear an
Can you
answer
speak a bit
about
closer to
that.
the
Oh,
microphone?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
My bad. So I would love to know how you get the pre-seed and the investors, like,
how do I approach you? How do I mean, you said find your email or whatever, but yeah, that's not easy. So how do you find the angels, like the founders, and the investors? Like, how do I approach you? And how important is the team, having a team, if you're a lone founder? Like, is it a no-go or? All right, these are my questions.
Any?
I've been talking too much. Someone else take it.
No? I mean, if it goes to pre-seed, I think it goes to us. The first money in, it will be people that really know you. I think it's hard to have strangers investing in a pre-seed phase. And I also don't think it's the right thing to do, because then if people who might get nervous, although they shouldn't be nervous, and then just stealing, I don't know what happened. We only took money from people we knew. Our seed round, to be honest, took 2 days to raise. And we couldn't prove so much, but I think people knew that we were hardworking, perhaps, because they were our bosses or colleagues. And then on the other day, at least friends of friends. So when you think about, I mean, we raised, and I think it's good also to be a little more transparent, because people actually want to know how to start. We raised 880,000 euros on a 4 million pre. Yeah? And 300 was the biggest ticket, and that was Oscar back then, as somebody who had his first success and was doing angel investment. And then we had an early stage family office investor with 200,000, and the next biggest was 100,000. We put in some money because we have worked before, and then the rest is really the 20s and 50s of people who really know you, and that creates a certain momentum that people actually want to put more when they see the round is coming together. And at the end of the day, of course, then you say, okay, how much do I want to dilute, and what's good for the company, and when can I raise money again? And yeah, I think it's much easier if you've shown in another environment that can even be free work if you want. So non-profit work could be freelance, could be in a company, but you need people who have seen you working, and then it's much easier for them to trust in you and put money in you. And to be honest, I also do the same. Yeah? So when I do angel invest, it's people that I have seen working, not even in my company, but that I know exactly, or at least I have the idea that I know them. It's not so easy to know 100% of people, but it's much. You have a better gut feeling when it's based on a perception like that. Yeah.
Markus, how did you find your first investors?
We were our first investors, so we actually didn't need a lot of money when we started. We were in the back room of a model agency with 4 desks and 4 founders who just didn't use a lot of resources. So we lived from almost nothing for 18 months until we had traction in the market. And then we went out to raise a Series A. We were very lucky that we had rather well-paying jobs before, so we could sustain that. And back then also, even the German Arbeitsamt did pay us some money that we could at least sustain our student lifestyle on from. So we have been again very lucky there. It's very hard to find money before you have any kind of product to show, and everything's, I think, couple of orders of magnitude harder if you're alone rather than with somebody. So it probably needs some creativity to get to somebody who pays your bills.
Markus, in the beginning, when you did this bootstrapped startup, how many hours did you work per week?
I have no idea, and it didn't make a difference because all I created back then is now called technical debt. So having worked less back then would be good for our engineers now. Not sure how much value that created.
Right. So more questions. Any more questions? Here, one more. 2 ladies. Great. There are not enough female founders in Berlin. We need more founders. Hopefully you start a company, and you too, and all 3. Yes?
Hi,
Please.
I'm Giselle. I'm from New York, and I founded a company called GigWorks. So actually, that is my question. Women in tech is getting a huge traction. What's your take on investing in companies by female founders?
So the last 2 deals are run by female CEOs. So we're completely open. We want to see more women in the business, both on the entrepreneur side, also on our side. So we think it's, we all make better decisions when there's more diversity. So we're absolutely open to everything. And I'm going to shut up before I say something stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I want to endorse that. One of the most successful companies we're currently invested in is a UK business called Darktrace, and that thing is growing. It's growing very, very rapidly, and the value it's almost a unicorn. The last round was just raised a few months ago, just sub the $1 billion mark, and the CEO is a woman. So we are frankly, I take a more dispassionate view about this. I really want to back the best CEOs, and I don't care where they come from or who they are. So as long as every person has the same right and the same possibilities to run a company, then that's what we do. But we have many CEOs. I mean, 2 or 3 additional companies that we recently backed in the US that are all run by women. So I don't think about it all that much. I look for the best CEOs.
Thank you.
So there was one more question in the back. We need a microphone in the back.
Hello, my name is Chiara, and I work for a startup from Milan, and we also have an office in Berlin. It's called Meritocracy, and we are an automated digital headhunter. And my question is for the investors, and I wanted to ask how important are the revenues for a Series A? If is this the first things that you look at if you decide to invest?
That's probably for Nenad and Markus and Hakan talking from experience. I think Matthias is more later stage.
So it depends. There's no straight answer here. It depends if the business, what the traction's like. Are people using the product a lot? Do the people like the product? How big is the opportunity? And actually, then more importantly, like, what will the unit economics be if somebody does use a product? How much does it cost to acquire a customer? How much is the value of that customer over their lifetime? So those are the kind of things the investor will look at. If it's a social media type product, then probably no one's going to think about monetizing it for a long time. But something that is B2B is probably going to have to think about generating some cash pretty soon.
Okay.
Markus, can you talk about experience a bit? When did you started to monetize a bit later, right?
Yes, we raised our Series A before monetization. We had a very, very high traction in the market. So it's my feeling was it depended on the relevance of the product, of the offering, and can you prove that hundreds of thousands of people will use it and buy it? It's a lot of, as always with investors, it's a lot of storytelling and showing that there are that what you try to do has been done before. Investors usually don't like to take risks or invest in something that they don't know already.
More questions from the audience?
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Christian from Berlin. I'm wondering about IT services. At some point, when you start a company, you need some kind of IT services, at least website, email, and everything. I would like to know, how were your first steps when you started the company? What did you do? Did you do that yourself? Did you take help? And what did you do for, let's say, your first IT services?
Hakan, do you want to start?
So Yeah, as I mentioned, I think we both more or less, in my case, knew how to code, so we built the platform and the database ourselves. And at the end of the day, you start very, very home office-like with the tools that you use. You bring your laptop from home and your screen and so on. And then startups rely a lot on cloud services. I think I haven't seen many startups in Berlin that don't use Google Apps Suite, for example, for their mails and their calendars and so on. So, and yeah, I think hosting is not a big challenge these days anymore, as it was perhaps 10 years, 15 years ago. And anything else, yeah, I think first it's the founder's job, and which shouldn't be his job. Then it's the CTO's job, which shouldn't be his job. And finally, you can afford somebody who can really professionally take care of it.
Markus agrees to it. Good. So, from my side, last questions to the investor. Matthias, why should someone take your money and not one of another investor? There's so many investors investing. Why Summit Partners?
Yeah. So, look, it's a longer answer, and that is it's a very often horses for courses. So if you pick an investor, I think to me the best companies in the world have a choice of who they want to work with as a capital provider. So I think the portfolio company, the potential portfolio company, needs to think about what they need from the investor other than capital. And so we've been going for almost 35 years, made a lot of investments, as I said, over 400. And in addition to the experience and the network and all that comes with that, we have, over the past few years, also try to see how we can differentiate ourselves in how we work with companies. And so we have some internal resources we provide. We have an in-house consulting group that is sort of a best practice sharing vehicle to all our portfolio companies. There's lots of learnings inside the portfolio that companies benefit. I mean, Signavio is a prime example. We've done 3 or 4 projects around how can we accelerate growth, how can we get our sales force more efficient, how can we think about pricing and so on. So I think that's one thing we do. We have an in-house recruitment group that helps recruit for C-level jobs for our portfolio. And then as the companies grow up, we have an in-house capital markets group that helps in the preparation for IPO. We help on recaps, financings, and so on. And then we have a very deep bench of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in residence or advisors and so on. So I think the advice I would have is it's a very much a personal relationship, but also an institutional one. What can the company that you or the private equity firm that you want to work with, what do they have to offer beyond capital? And I think I would look very hard at that, because the more branded a firm you have as an advisor, the easier it is going to be to recruit top people, to work with bankers and so on. It's a bit of a trying to create a nice spinning wheel.
Good, Matthias. Nenad, why DN Capital?
Okay, so it takes about, on average, between 8 to 10 years to go from startup to exit. So one, you better like the person, because you're going to be stuck with this person for a long time. There's 3 ways investors really help you. I would say in the early stages, it's really helping you build your team, helping find you customers and strategy. So finding someone that's actually done it before, been doing this business for a while is always a good thing, because we see many of the same things again and again and again. We also have big networks. If you're a marketplace company and you want to find an investor, you should try to get someone who's actually invested in marketplaces, because they're going to, if you need to find people in tech, product, et cetera, they're going to be able to help you. And understand also their network. So I guess the other ways we help is raising capital. So, we know every other venture firm, we know every private equity firm. So if we have a good company and it's raising capital, we can get them in meetings with all the top firms. Then it's up to the CEO to make the sale, but we can get them in the room. And we can usually do that also on the headhunting, et cetera. And then the last part's on exit. We've created now 6 unicorns. We've sold many companies, and so we know what to do, how to sell a company or take it public. And I guess that would be, and then the real way for you to actually test whether what I'm saying is bullshit or not is to speak to our CEOs. Speak to companies that we've backed in the past and ask them how the experience was with us. And that's it.
Thanks, Nenad. DN Capital, the unicorn builder, I would say. And now, Markus, what's your number one advice to founders that want to build a big global company like yours?
I'm always struggling with number one, but I think the most valuable advice that many people can do with is don't solve a problem that you don't have. Founders, when they start, are usually eager to think ahead and think about problems that they currently don't have at hand. There's only one problem you can solve in the early stage in a certain phase. Know this one problem and focus on it and leave everything else aside. That is tough and that needs focus, and usually good founders are dreamers and they dream on about challenges that there will be, scaling, whatever. Keep that for later.
Hakan, what's your number one advice to founders?
Yeah, I think it's in the same direction. Don't waste your time. And you need to, when you found this exponential moment, when you're in the flywheel and you really know this is picking up, and the more time I put in it, the more outcome I have, I don't want to see you in this audience anymore because you have no time to waste. So if you really are in a fast-growing startup and every minute that you put in has an ROI of more than a minute that you put in, then you stop going to anything else. You don't need the founder beer or God knows what. And you can spend the whole week in Berlin drinking founder coffee and founder beer. And we have ignored all of that for many, many years and really, really, really only focused on what you're doing. And you have to face it. The person you will see most is your co-founder, so make sure that you like him. So the accumulated hours that I spend with my co-founder is definitely more than any second-level relative. And at the end of our life, it might be more than the hours with my mother. So you really make sure that you like the guy.
Hakan, that's great. Let's go back to work. Thanks. Thank you very much.